I gave up my own college dreams just so Ethan Miller could get his PhD. During the day, I delivered food on my scooter. At night, I worked as a mall janitor. I survived on only 4 hours of sleep a day. Because of the physical exhaustion, I suffered 2 miscarriages. Eventually, I developed severe reproductive health issues and had to have half of my uterus removed. Finally, Ethan graduated. He landed a high-paying job at a listed company with a 6-figure salary. He promised to give me a grand wedding. But while trying on wedding dresses, I got bored and browsed Instagram. A viral post on a local confession page caught my eye. How do I dump my uneducated, janitor girlfriend who put me through school without looking like the bad guy? She can't even understand basic academic talk. It is embarrassing to take her out. I have met a female executive at my company who truly gets me. I don't want to play savior anymore. Attached to the post was a photo of a medical report. The name was blurred, but I recognized it instantly. It was my uterine surgery report. Across the fitting room curtain, Ethan's gentle voice drifted in. Honey, are you done changing? I can't wait to see you in that dress. I looked down and touched the ugly surgical scar on my lower abdomen. Suddenly, my 10 years of sacrifice felt like a total joke. Babe, is the dress on yet? I locked my phone and slipped it into the pocket of my old coat. My hand lingered on the scar on my stomach for 2 seconds before I pulled it away. I pushed the curtain open. Ethan blinked in surprise when he saw me still wearing my old, faded clothes. Why did you take it off? Weren't you obsessing over that mermaid gown for days? He set down his coffee cup, walked over, and wrapped an arm around my shoulder with a doting smile. Is it too expensive? Don't worry about the price. Your man makes 6 figures now. I can easily afford a wedding dress. I took a subtle step back, slipping out of his embrace. It doesn't fit. How? Is the size wrong? He frowned and turned to the sales associate. Did you guys give her the wrong size? The sales associate smiled apologetically. Mr. Miller, the lady said the design is too complicated. She said it's not practical for doing chores. Ethan sighed, reaching out to ruffle my hair. Silly girl. You're going to be a princess on our wedding day. Who's going to make you do chores? He took my hand, his thumb gently rubbing my rough, calloused palm. You've worked too hard these past 10 years. From now on, you stay home and relax. I'll take care of you. His eyes were full of sincerity. He looked exactly like the boy who had hugged me tightly and sworn to love me forever when he got his PhD acceptance letter. If I hadn't seen that post, I probably would have cried tears of gratitude. I pulled my hand back and shoved it into my pockets. I'm tired. I want to go home. All right. We'll go home and rest today. I'll take you to another boutique tomorrow. As we walked out of the bridal shop, a cold gust of wind hit us. Ethan took off his cashmere scarf and wrapped it around my neck. Cold? Wait here. I'll bring the car around. He turned and walked toward the parking lot. I watched his retreating figure. He wore a well-tailored wool coat. He looked tall, handsome, and successful. Ethan unlocked the car and opened the passenger door for me. A cup of tea sat in the cup holder. Your favorite. Half sweet, no ice. I grabbed it on the way. I stared at the cup but didn't touch it. I don't drink anymore. Ethan's hand on the steering wheel paused. What's wrong? Is your stomach acting up again? He reached into the glove compartment with one hand and took out a bottle of stomach medicine. Take 2 tablets when we get back. I'll take a day off tomorrow to go to the hospital with you for a checkup. I leaned back against the seat, watching the city lights blur past the window. Ethan, do you find me embarrassing? Ethan let out a soft chuckle. What are you overthinking now? Who would dare call my wife embarrassing? He stopped at a red light and turned to look at my face. Did you overhear my mom's phone call? Just ignore her. She's old-fashioned. I only made it this far because you worked multiple jobs to support me. I will remember your sacrifice for the rest of my life. Sacrifice. He called it a sacrifice, not love. I looked down at my worn fingers. You wrote that post, didn't you? The light turned green. The car behind us honked. Ethan stepped on the gas, and the car smoothly crossed the intersection. What post? His voice was calm, showing no signs of guilt. You spend too much time on social media. There are millions of people on Instagram. It's just a coincidence that someone has a similar story. What about my medical report? The smile finally vanished from Ethan's face. He pulled the car over to the curb and killed the engine. Did you go through my phone? I didn't answer. I just stared at him. Ethan let out a heavy sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose. A coworker took my phone and posted that as a joke. We were playing truth or dare at lunch. You actually believed a stupid prank like that? He leaned in, trying to hug me. I've already paid the non-refundable deposit for the wedding venue, Ava. How could I possibly want to dump you? I lay still in his arms, letting him hold me. His coat smelled of expensive woody cologne. I had never owned a bottle of perfume in my life. Right then, his phone on the dashboard lit up. A WhatsApp message popped up on the screen. Are you coming over tonight? I saved some dessert for you. Ethan's eyes quickly flicked to the screen. There's an emergency at the office. My manager is a total workaholic. She doesn't even let us rest on weekends. I kept my eyes on the congested traffic ahead. I see. Ethan seemed to think my reaction was too indifferent. He glanced at me. Don't overthink it. My manager is 3 years older than me. She just mentors me a lot at work. The competition for the promotion is fierce. I need to make a good impression. He patted the back of my hand. Once I make director, we'll put a down payment on an apartment downtown. We can even bring your parents over from your hometown. Reuniting with my parents was indeed my biggest dream. In the past, whenever Ethan said things like this, I would be so moved that I'd take on extra cleaning shifts at the mall just to make more money. But now, I pulled my hand back. No need. My parents are doing fine where they are. The car stopped in front of our rented apartment building. Ethan didn't get out. Babe, go upstairs and get some rest. I have to head back to the office. He pulled $200 bills from his wallet and handed them to me. Buy yourself something nice for dinner. Stop eating leftovers. I didn't take the money. I pushed the door open and stepped out. Don't drink too much. I shut the door and walked straight into the dark hallway without looking back. The motion sensor light was broken again. It was pitch black. I climbed up to the 5th floor by memory and unlocked the door. The apartment smelled of dampness that never quite went away. Ethan's faded white shirts hung on the balcony. Cardboard boxes I had collected for recycling were piled next to the sofa. I walked to the bedroom and pulled open the bottom drawer of the nightstand. There was a small metal tin inside. Inside were all the savings I had managed to scrape together over the last 10 years. It was less than $7,000. During Ethan's PhD years, tuition and living expenses were a bottomless pit. I delivered food in the freezing rain by day and cleaned toilets at night. I even bought the cheapest brand of sanitary pads just to save a few pennies. One night, while scrubbing floors, my back ached so badly I collapsed. I had a miscarriage. That was how I found out I was pregnant. By the time I was rushed to the ER, the doctor said it was too late. Half of my uterus had to be surgically removed to save my life. Ethan had cried until his eyes were swollen at my bedside, swearing he would protect me with his life. And I had believed him. I took out the savings cards and slipped them into my pocket. Then, I pulled out an old duffel bag and began packing. I didn't have many belongings. A few cheap clothes bought from clearance racks, a pair of worn-out sneakers, and a few old textbooks Ethan had discarded. It took less than 30 minutes to pack my entire life. I sat on the bare mattress, looking at the framed photo of us from 10 years ago hanging on the wall. In the photo, Ethan was wearing a simple white t-shirt, smiling shyly. I had my hair in a ponytail, leaning happily on his shoulder. I stood up and ripped the photo off the wall. I pulled too hard, and a chunk of the cheap wallpaper peeled off with it. The sound of keys jingling came from the front door. Ethan walked in, holding a beautifully packaged cake box. He froze when he saw the duffel bag on the floor. What are you doing? He set the cake on the table and rushed over to grab my hands. Why are you putting your winter clothes away? I can toss them in the laundry for you tomorrow. He always did this. He would find a reasonable sounding excuse rather than face what was right in front of him. I shook his hands off. I'm moving out. The smile on Ethan's face completely hardened. His brows furrowed deeply. Are you seriously throwing a tantrum and running away over a stupid internet post? He took a deep breath, trying to control his temper. I already explained it was a joke. What more do you want from me? He pointed at the cake on the table. I skipped my overtime and drove across 3 neighborhoods just to buy you your favorite strawberry shortcake. Can you grow up for once? Grow up. Over the past 10 years, I had heard that phrase more than anything else. When I worked 2 jobs and threw up blood from exhaustion, Ethan's mother told me. Ethan has a lot of academic pressure. Grow up, Ava. Don't bother him with your minor illnesses. When I lay in the hospital bed after losing half my uterus, Ethan said. Thank you for being so grown up, babe. I'll make it up to you when I graduate. And now, because I wanted to leave, I was being childish. I looked at the elegantly wrapped cake box. It was from an upscale bakery downtown. A single slice cost $30. It would take me 3 hours of scrubbing floors to earn that slice. I'm allergic to strawberries, Ethan. I break out in hives. Did you forget? Ethan went rigid. His eyes flickered with guilt. He had obviously forgotten. I'm sorry, babe. Work has been so crazy lately. My mind is all over the place. He pushed the cake aside. Forget the cake. Let me take you out for Korean barbecue. Haven't you been wanting to try that new spot down the street? I didn't move. Ethan, you replied to a comment on that Instagram post. I looked at him, my voice completely flat. You wrote, every time I go home and see her rough, calloused hands, I lose my appetite. Ethan's face turned incredibly pale. Do you have to make things this ugly? He yanked his tie loose, his voice rising with anger. Fine. Yes, I wrote it. But I was just venting online. I didn't actually break up with you, did I? Look at yourself. He gestured at me, his eyes filled with undisguised disgust. You always wear cheap, thrift store clothes. You never style your hair. When I brought you to my company mixer, everyone thought you were my maid. Every day, I deal with sophisticated executives and elite clients. Then I come home to face your plain, worn-out face. Do you think I don't feel the pressure? I stood there quietly, listening to him spit out those words. Strangely, I didn't even feel pain anymore. Just an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. If you feel so miserable, why didn't you just ask for a breakup? I asked quietly. Ethan frustratedly ran a hand through his hair. Because I knew you couldn't handle it. Your health is ruined, and you don't even have a college degree. How are you going to survive in this city without me? He stepped closer, his voice softening again. Ava, I admit I had a momentary lapse in judgment. Victoria, my manager, can really help me with my career. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. The wedding will go on as planned. I will give you the status of being my wife. Just stop making a scene, okay? Be a good girl and stay home as a full-time housewife. He spoke of marriage as if it were a generous charity. I picked up my duffel bag. I have a night shift at the mall. Ethan let out a sigh of relief, thinking I had submitted yet again. Go on then. Don't stay out too late. I'll take you to another bridal shop tomorrow. He leaned in to kiss my forehead. I didn't dodge it. As I walked out of the apartment building, the cold night wind blew against my skin, and I realized I was drenched in a cold sweat. I didn't go to the mall. Instead, I took the bus to the city hospital. My latest medical report showed that my uterine fibroids were showing signs of precancerous changes. I needed surgery immediately. But Ethan hadn't even looked at the report. He had simply taken a photo of it to gain sympathy points from strangers online. The bus rattled along. I leaned my head against the window, watching the neon lights of the city blur past. The doctor on duty frowned deeply as he reviewed my chart. Why did you wait so long to come in? We need to schedule the surgery immediately. This could become life-threatening. The doctor handed me a stack of forms. Have your husband or a family member come in tomorrow to sign the consent forms and pay the deposit. I took the papers, my hands trembling slightly. Can't I just sign them myself? The doctor looked at me with pity. This is a major procedure. Hospital policy requires an emergency contact or a family member's signature for post-op release. I walked out of the hospital clutching the papers. The cold wind slipped down my collar, and I wrapped my old coat tighter around myself. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. The post had reached the top of the local trending page. The author had updated the thread just 30 minutes ago. She threw a tantrum today, but I easily managed her with a cheap cake. Women who have never seen the world are so easy to control. Once I get my company shares, I'll find an excuse to send her back to her small town. That was posted right after I left the apartment. I closed the app and walked to an ATM on the corner. I inserted my card to check my balance. $7,200. It wasn't even half of what the surgery would cost. The next morning, I went to Ethan's company. It was located in a luxurious skyscraper downtown. Wearing my faded jeans and worn sneakers, I stood in the lobby looking completely out of place. The receptionist eyed me suspiciously. Can I help you? Do you have an appointment? I'm here to see Ethan Miller. I'm his. I paused. An old friend. I need to drop something off. The receptionist made a quick call and then pointed to the elevators. Mr. Miller is in the conference room on the 16th floor. I took the elevator up. The door to the conference room at the end of the hall was slightly ajar. As I approached, I heard Ethan's voice. Miss Sterling, you can leave this project entirely to me. I won't let you down. I trust your capability, Ethan, a woman's voice replied. But I heard you're getting married soon. Your janitor girlfriend isn't giving you any trouble, is she? I stopped in my tracks and looked through the gap in the door. Ethan was standing near the desk, leaning forward slightly in a highly submissive posture. Victoria Sterling sat in her executive chair, casually spinning a pen in her hand. You must be joking, Miss Sterling. Ethan let out a self-deprecating laugh, his voice filled with contempt. That's not a real marriage. It's just a ceremony to quiet her down. Someone like her can barely read a complex spreadsheet. There's no way I'd legally register a marriage with her. Once the project bonus is cleared, I'll give her a lump sum of cash and send her back to her hometown. Victoria chuckled. You're quite heartless. She did support you for 10 years, after all. She did that of her own free will. She gave me her best years, but honestly, looking back, she had no self-respect. Ethan spoke with absolute self-righteousness. Besides, I give her a monthly allowance now. I've done more than enough for her. I stood outside the door, listening to him dismiss my 10 years of sweat and blood as nothing to another woman. Victoria stood up and walked toward Ethan. Her high heel accidentally caught the edge of a coffee cup on the desk. The dark liquid splashed all over her designer leather shoes. Oh, great. They're ruined, Victoria grumbled, frowning. Ethan immediately grabbed some tissues and knelt down to clean them. I pushed the door open and walked in. Ethan's face drained of color instantly. Ava? What are you doing here? Victoria looked me up and down, a mocking smirk playing on her lips. So this is your janitor girlfriend? She does look obedient. She pointed to her shoe. Since you're a professional cleaner, why don't you clean my shoes for me? Ethan rushed over, grabbing my wrist tightly. Ava, please. Just clean Ms. Sterling's shoes. My promotion next month depends entirely on her. Be reasonable. The silence in the conference room grew so heavy I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Ethan remained on his knees, his hands hovering near Victoria Sterling's expensive leather shoes. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of desperate pleading and sharp, warning irritation. Ava, please, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper, though it carried clearly in the quiet room. Don't do this here. Just help her out. It's a simple favor. I'll make it up to you tonight, I swear. Victoria leaned back in her mesh executive chair, a faint, mocking smile playing on her lips. She didn't look at Ethan, her eyes were locked on me, assessing my faded jeans, my worn-out sneakers, and the cheap, oversized coat that had seen too many winters. She was enjoying this. To her, I wasn't a person, I was a prop. In a game of corporate dominance, a physical manifestation of Ethan's past that he was eager to trample to secure his future. Well? Victoria asked, tapping her manicured nails against the armrest. I thought you were a professional, Ava. Ethan speaks so highly of your work ethic. I looked down at the paper napkin Ethan had pressed into my hand. It was thin, cheap, and already turning damp from the sweat of his palm. 10 years. 10 years of riding a scooter through freezing rain to deliver takeout to spoiled college kids who didn't tip. 10 years of inhaling industrial bleach at 2 in the morning, scrubbing toilets in a mall where people looked right through me. 10 years of carrying the weight of his tuition, his textbooks, his rent, and his high-end laptops, while my own body quietly broke down. I had given up my education. I had given up my health. I had given up 2 children I would never get to hold, and half of the very organ that made motherhood possible. And here he was, kneeling on a plush carpet in a high-rise office, asking me to bend my knees alongside him so he could climb one more rung on a ladder built entirely out of my bones. Ava? Ethan's voice grew sharper, a hint of panic bleeding through. Did you hear me? Just wipe the shoe. It's not a big deal. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The boy who had cried on my shoulder when he got his PhD acceptance letter, promising to buy me a house with a garden, was gone. In his place stood a hollowed-out shell of ambition, dressed in a tailored wool coat I had worked 3 consecutive double shifts to help him buy. Slowly, I let go of the napkin. It fluttered to the floor, landing right next to Victoria's stained leather shoe. If you want her shoes cleaned, Ethan, I said, my voice quiet but entirely steady, you have 2 hands. Use them. Ethan's face drained of what little color it had left. Ava, what the hell are you saying? Do you have any idea how hard I worked to get into this office? No, I replied, looking him dead in the eye. Do you have any idea how hard I worked to get you into this office? Victoria's smirk faltered slightly, her eyes narrowing as she sensed the shift in the room's gravity. I'm leaving, Ethan, I said, turning toward the door. Ava. Stop. Ethan scrambled to his feet, abandoning his kneeling posture. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight and frantic. You can't just walk out like this. You're ruining everything. Do you know what Miss Sterling can do for my career? If I don't get this promotion, we can't buy the apartment. We can't bring your parents here. Don't be so selfish. Selfish. The word tasted like ash. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream or cry. I simply looked down at his hand on my wrist until he slowly, reluctantly, let go. I am not your maid, Ethan. And I am no longer your stepping stone. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the stack of hospital consent forms and the medical report showing the precancerous changes in my uterus, and dropped them onto the conference table. The hospital needs $15,000 for my emergency surgery, I said, my voice echoing in the quiet room. You took a picture of this report to post on your confession page, calling me an embarrassment. But you didn't even bother to read the diagnosis. You didn't even ask if I was going to die. Ethan stared at the papers on the table. For a fraction of a second, a flicker of genuine horror crossed his face as his eyes scanned the medical jargon: atypical hyperplasia, immediate surgical intervention required. Ava. I didn't know, he stammered, his voice losing its defensive edge. I thought it was just a routine follow-up. I thought. You didn't care, I corrected him. I turned and looked at Victoria, who was now staring at the medical papers with a sudden, uncomfortable silence. The amusement had completely vanished from her face. He's all yours, Miss Sterling, I said softly. I hope he's worth the price. Without waiting for another word, I walked out of the conference room. Ava. Ava, wait. Ethan's frantic footsteps echoed behind me down the long, carpeted corridor. I didn't slow down. I pressed the button for the elevator. When the doors slid open, I stepped inside and turned around. Ethan reached the elevator just as the doors began to close. He blocked them with his hand, his face pale and sweating. We can talk about this, he pleaded, his voice cracking. I'll pay for the surgery. I'll take out a loan. Just don't leave like this. If you walk away now, we're done. Do you hear me? You'll have nothing. No money, no degree, no one to take care of you. I looked at him through the narrowing gap of the elevator doors. For the first time in 10 years, the heavy, suffocating weight in my chest felt a fraction lighter. I survived 10 years of caring for you, Ethan, I said. Surviving without you will be easy. The doors clicked shut, cutting off his face, and the elevator began its long, silent descent. The rain had started again by the time I reached the street. I didn't have my scooter anymore. I had sold it 3 days ago to pay for Ethan's suit for the company mixer, so I walked to the nearest bus stop, my old coat soaking through. I sat on the cold metal bench, my hands shivering. I pulled out my phone. My fingers hovered over my contact list before finally stopping on a name I hadn't called in 3 years, Mom. When Ethan had started his PhD program, his mother had told me in no uncertain terms that my poor, rural family would drag Ethan down if they came to the city. Ethan had subtly agreed, suggesting we keep our distance until he was established. Out of love for him, and out of a deep, stinging shame of my own poverty, I had stopped calling them. I had let the distance grow until it felt like a canyon. My thumb trembled as I pressed the call button. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. Ava? My mother's voice was older, thinner than I remembered, but the warmth in it was instantaneous. Mom, I choked out. The tears I had held back in the bridal shop, in the car, and in the high-rise conference room finally spilled over. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, my baby. What's wrong? Are you hurt? There was a rustling sound on the other end, the frantic voice of my father asking who it was in the background. Ava, talk to me. Where are you? I need to come home, I sobbed, pressing my hand against my stomach, where the dull, persistent ache of my illness seemed to flare up in response to my distress. I'm sick, Mom. And I have nowhere else to go. Come home, my mother said immediately, without a single question, without a hint of anger for the 3 years of silence. Your father is getting the car. We'll drive to the city right now and pick you up. No, I wiped my face, trying to steady my breathing. It's a 5-hour drive, and the roads are bad. I'll take the night bus. I'll be there by morning. We'll be waiting at the station, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. Don't worry about anything, Ava. Just get on the bus. I hung up, leaning my head against the wet glass of the bus shelter. I went back to the rental apartment one last time. I didn't want to risk running into Ethan, so I worked quickly. I grabbed my single duffel bag, which had sat by the door since the previous night. I left the keys on the kitchen counter, next to the framed photograph I had torn from the wall. The white patch of plaster where the wallpaper had ripped looked like a scar on the room. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to say. The bus ride to my hometown was long, dark, and bumpy. Every jolt of the vehicle sent a sharp pain through my lower abdomen, a physical reminder of the ticking clock inside my body. But as the towering skyscrapers of the city faded into the flat, quiet darkness of the countryside, the panic in my chest began to subside, replaced by a quiet, hollow resolve. When the bus finally pulled into the dusty station of my hometown at 6 in the morning, the sun was just beginning to rise over the hills, painting the sky in pale shades of pink and gold. As the doors hissed open, I saw them. My parents were standing near the platform, wrapped in worn, faded winter coats. My father's hair was entirely white now, and his shoulders were slightly bent. But his eyes were scanning the descending passengers with desperate intensity. My mother was clutching a thermos of hot tea, her lips moving in silent prayer. Mom. Dad, I called out, stepping off the bus. My mother dropped the thermos. She didn't care about the hot liquid spilling onto the concrete. She ran to me, wrapping her arms around my neck, pulling me into a hold so tight I could barely breathe. My father was right behind her, his Large, rough hands, the hands of a farmer who had worked the land his entire life, wrapping around both of us. You're so thin, my mother wept, rubbing my back. My God, Ava, what did he do to you? It's over, Mom, I whispered, burying my face in her shoulder. I'm home. My parents didn't ask about Ethan, and I didn't volunteer the details. They didn't need to know the depth of his cruelty, they could read it in my hollow cheeks, the dark circles under my eyes, and the way I flinched whenever my phone buzzed in my pocket. That afternoon, my father took me to the county hospital. It wasn't a gleaming, high-tech facility like the ones in the city, but the chief gynecologist, Dr. Evans, was a kind, maternal woman who had known my family for decades. She reviewed the medical files I had brought with me, her expression turning increasingly grave. The diagnosis is correct, Ava, Dr. Evans said, gently placing her hand over mine. The atypical cells are spreading. If we don't operate to remove the remaining portion of your uterus and the surrounding fibroids, this will progress to full-blown cancer. We need to do this within the next 2 weeks. I looked down at my lap. How much will it cost? With your provincial insurance, the out-of-pocket cost for the surgery, anesthesia, and post-op care will be around $12,000, Dr. Evans said softly. I wish I could waive it, but the hospital board is very strict about surgical supplies. $12,000. I only had $7,200 in my savings tin. I was $4,800 short. Don't worry about the money, Dr. Evans, my father's voice cracked from the corner of the room. He stood up, his face set in a look of quiet determination. We'll have the deposit by tomorrow morning. Please schedule the surgery for the earliest possible date. Dad, no, I turned to him, panic rising in my throat. You don't have that kind of money. Your savings were for your retirement, and the roof on the barn needs. Ava, my father interrupted, his voice firm, carrying the weight of a parent who had spent too many years feeling helpless while his daughter suffered in silence miles away. I sold the old tractor this morning. And your uncle offered to buy the southern plot of our farmland. We have enough. Your life is worth more than any piece of dirt. I covered my face with my hands, my shoulders shaking as the tears came. All those years, I had believed Ethan's mother when she said my parents were a burden. I had believed Ethan when he said I had no one else. But when the world stripped me bare, the person who had claimed to love me for 10 years had left me to rot, while the parents I had neglected sacrificed their livelihood without a second thought. The surgery was scheduled for 3 days later. The morning of the operation was cold and crisp. As they wheeled me into the sterile, brightly lit operating room, I felt a strange sense of peace. The anesthesia crept into my veins, warm and heavy. Just before I drifted off, I had a vivid image of the mermaid wedding gown I had tried on in the boutique. In my mind, I didn't see myself wearing it. I saw the gown catching fire, the delicate lace turning to ash and blowing away in the wind, leaving nothing but clear, open sky. When I woke up, the harsh, metallic scent of the operating room was gone, replaced by the faint smell of lavender. My mother was sitting by my bedside, holding my hand. It's over, baby, she whispered, her eyes shining with tears. Dr. Evans said. They got everything. You're going to be okay. I looked down at my stomach, which was wrapped in thick surgical bandages. The pain was there, sharp and throbbing, but it was a clean pain. It was the pain of healing, not the slow, poisonous decay of a dying relationship. For the first time in 10 years, I slept. Really slept. No alarms, no late night delivery runs, no scrubbing floors under the harsh glare of mall security lights. Just deep, healing silence. While I was recovering in the quiet warmth of my childhood home, the city I had left behind was beginning to fracture. Ethan sat at his desk on the 16th floor of the Sterling Group headquarters, staring at his computer screen. The promotion list was scheduled to be announced in 2 weeks, but the atmosphere in the office had changed. Ever since the incident in the conference room, Victoria Sterling had treated him with a cold, calculated distance. She no longer invited him to private lunches, and her feedback on his project drafts had become brutal. This is sloppy, Ethan, Victoria said, tossing a printout of his market analysis onto his desk. The data formatting is inconsistent, and your projections lack any real analytical depth. I thought you had a PhD. Ethan swallowed hard, his tie suddenly feeling too tight. I'm sorry, MS. Sterling. I've been distracted. My domestic situation has been complicated. I don't care about your domestic situation, Victoria said coldly, leaning over his desk. I care about results. The only reason I brought you onto this project was because your academic portfolio showed a high level of analytical precision. But frankly, the work you've produced over the last week looks like it was written by an undergraduate. Ethan's hands trembled slightly. She was right. And he knew exactly why. During his 5 years in the PhD program, Ethan had been hailed as a rising star. But the dirty secret of his academic success was Ava. Ava, who had wanted to study computer science before she dropped out, had an incredibly sharp, logical mind. While Ethan slept off his academic stress, Ava would sit at the kitchen table after her night shift, proofreading his papers, formatting his complex data structures, and organizing his research citations. She had spent countless hours cleaning up his messy drafts, turning his disorganized thoughts into cohesive, brilliant academic arguments. Ethan had convinced himself that she was just doing clerical work. He had told himself that his intellect was the real driving force, and she was just a secretary. But now, faced with high-level corporate data analysis on his own, Ethan was drowning. He didn't know how to clean the raw data. He didn't know how to structure the predictive models without Ava's quiet, late-night guidance. "I'll have it revised by tomorrow, Miss Sterling," Ethan promised, his voice tight. "Make sure you do," Victoria said, her eyes flashing with disdain. "And by the way, that little internet drama of yours? The HR director asked me about it today. Apparently, someone flagged your post on the confession page. It's not a good look for the company, Ethan. We don't like liabilities." She walked away, her high heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Panic, cold and sharp, seized Ethan's chest. He pulled out his phone and opened Instagram. He had deleted the post on the confession page the night Ava left, but it was too late. Someone had taken screenshots. Even worse, a local community forum had picked up the story. An anonymous user, claiming to be a nurse at the city hospital, had posted. The medical report in that post belongs to a patient who had half her uterus removed due to severe physical exhaustion from working 2 jobs to support this guy. She's now facing a life-threatening precancerous condition, and he's online bragging about how he manages her with a $30 cake. This man is a monster. The comment section was a bloodbath. Hundreds of users were calling for the anonymous PhD husband to be exposed. Some had already begun piecing together the clues, the timeline of his graduation, the mention of the listed company, and his recent entry into the Sterling Group. Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a message from his mother. "Ethan. What is going on? My friends at the community center are asking me about some terrible rumors online. They're saying you abandoned Ava because she's sick. You need to fix this. If people think you're ungrateful, it will ruin our family's reputation." Ethan threw his phone onto the desk, his face twisting in frustration. "Ava," he hissed under his breath. "This is all your fault." He grabbed his coat and left the office early. He drove back to the rented apartment, expecting to find her there, waiting for him to forgive her. He had convinced himself that she had nowhere else to go. She would be cold, hungry, and terrified of her medical bills. She would crawl back, and he would play the savior once again, resolving the online scandal by posting a photo of them together at a restaurant. But when he opened the door, the apartment was empty. The damp, cold air hit him immediately. The kitchen counter was bare, except for the keys and the ripped photo. The closet was half empty, all of her cheap, faded clothes gone. For the first time, a hollow, sinking feeling settled in the pit of Ethan's stomach. Ava was really gone. 6 months passed. The surgical scars on my abdomen had faded to thin, pale lines. My health had fully returned, and with it, a level of energy I hadn't felt since I was 18 years old. My cheeks were flushed with color, and my hands, though still carrying the faint calluses of my past labor, were clean and steady. I didn't want to be a burden to my parents any longer. But I also knew I could never go back to cleaning toilets or delivering food. One afternoon, while helping my mother organize the attic, I found my old high school textbooks. I had been the valedictorian of my graduating class. I had dreamed of studying environmental engineering, of designing sustainable water systems for communities like ours. "Go back, Ava," my mother said, standing at the doorway, watching me dust off an old calculus book. "Mom, I'm 28, I said, a faint laugh escaping my lips. "I'm too old to be a freshman." "You're never too old to live your own life," she said softly, walking over to press her hand against my cheek. "You spent 10 years living Ethan's life. It's time to live yours." That night, I applied for an adult matriculation program at the provincial university, 30 miles from our town. Because of my high school grades and a powerful, brutally honest personal essay about my years in the service industry and my fight against illness, the university admissions board didn't just accept They awarded me a full tuition scholarship sponsored by a regional green technology firm, clean tech logistics developer Aeroflow Systems. I threw myself into my studies with a hunger that shocked my professors. While the 18-year-old students complained about early morning lectures, I was always the first to arrive. I had spent 10 years waking up at 4 in the morning to ride a scooter in the snow, sitting in a warm, dry library with a stack of textbooks felt like absolute luxury. My practical experience in facility management and sanitation turned out to be an unexpected asset. I knew the operational inefficiencies of large commercial buildings because I had worked in their basements. I knew how waste disposal systems failed because I had unblocked them. By my second year, I was working as a research assistant for Dr. Eris Thorne, a leading expert in industrial environmental design. "You have a rare gift, Ava," Dr. Thorne told me one afternoon as we reviewed a blueprint for a waste-to-energy conversion system for a new commercial district. "Most engineers only understand the theory. You understand the physical reality of how these systems are maintained. That's something you can't teach in a classroom." I smiled, looking out the office window at the campus courtyard. "I learned it the hard way, Dr. Thorne." "Well, the hard way makes the best engineers," he said, handing me a folder. "Aeroflow Systems is looking for a student representative to join their consulting team for a major municipal bidding war in the city next month. I want you to go." The city. The word sent a brief, cold shiver down my spine. But when I looked at my reflection in the glass of the office door, I didn't see the tired, invisible girl in the faded coat anymore. I saw a woman who had rebuilt herself from the dust. "I'll do it," I said. While I was building my new life, Ethan's world was systematically dismantling itself. Without Ava to clean up his academic and professional work, his performance at the Sterling Group had plummeted from mediocre to disastrous. He had failed to secure the key accounts Victoria had assigned to him, and his project proposals were consistently rejected for critical analytical errors. To make matters worse, the online scandal had finally breached the corporate walls. A disgruntled former classmate of Ethan's, who had long resented his arrogant attitude during his PhD program, had finally identified him as the author of the infamous Instagram confession post. The classmate had compiled a detailed dossier, including screenshots of the post, the blurred medical report matching Ava's public surgery fundraiser organized by her local community, and Ethan's LinkedIn profile, and emailed it directly to the HR department of the Sterling Group. The fallout was swift. "Ethan, please step into my office," Victoria said one Tuesday morning. Her voice was devoid of any of the playful, manipulative warmth she had once used to string him along. Ethan entered the office, his heart hammering against his ribs. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, his expensive suit hung loosely on his frame, and there were deep, dark bags under his eyes. Sitting in the office with Victoria was Mr. Vance, the Director of Human Resources. "Sit down, Ethan, Mr. Vance said, gesturing to a chair. Ethan sat, his hands trembling as he placed them on his knees. Mr. Vance slid a printed document across the desk. It was the dossier. "Do you recognize this?" Mr. Vance asked. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. It's a personal matter. A misunderstanding. My ex-girlfriend was unstable. She wanted to ruin my reputation because I broke up with her." "That's not what the medical records say, Ethan," Victoria interrupted, her voice dripping with ice. "And frankly, I don't care about your relationship. What I care about is that you posted proprietary information." Ethan blinked, confused. "What?" "No, I didn't. I only posted a picture of a medical report. A medical report that was issued by a clinic affiliated with the Sterling Group's healthcare provider," Victoria said, leaning forward. "A report that contained a blurred but traceable employee insurance claim number in the corner. You leaked internal administrative data to a public forum to gain social media clout. That is a direct violation of your non-disclosure agreement." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Ms. Sterling. Victoria, please. I didn't know. It was a mistake. And then there is the matter of your work," Mr. Vance continued, his voice calm and clinical. "We initiated a review of your project submissions over the last 6 months. Since your ex-partner left, your analytical accuracy has dropped by over 40%. Our digital forensics team took a look at your PhD thesis, which you submitted as part of your hiring credentials." Mr. Vance pulled out another file. "We ran the metadata of your PhD research drafts through our system. It appears that over 80% of the data organization, coding, and formatting was performed by a user registered under the name Ave_L. A user who, according to our records, was never credited as a co-author or assistant." Ethan felt the room spin. She was just my girlfriend. She was helping me. With clerical work. It's common practice. It is plagiarism and academic dishonesty when you claim sole authorship of work. You did not possess the technical capability to produce yourself, Mr. Vance said coldly. The university has already been notified, and they are launching a formal investigation into your PhD credentials. No, please, Ethan begged, standing up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You can't do this. I have a 6-figure salary. I have a car payment. I have a lease. You had a career, Ethan, Victoria said, looking at him with absolute disgust. But you're a fraud. A fraud who rode on the back of a woman who was literally dying to keep you afloat, and then had the audacity to call her an embarrassment. Get out of my office. Within an hour, Ethan was escorted from the building by security, carrying his personal belongings in a cardboard box. The elevator ride down to the lobby was the longest of his life. As he stepped out into the bustling city street, the cold wind hitting his face, he realized he had no job, no reference, a pending academic investigation that would likely strip him of his doctorate, and a reputation so toxic no reputable firm in the city would ever hire him. He was entirely, utterly alone. 2 years later, the Grand Plaza Convention Center in the city was buzzing with energy. Representatives from the region's top real estate developers, environmental consulting firms, and municipal boards had gathered for the final bidding on the Green Horizon Initiative, a multi-million-dollar municipal project to modernize the waste management and energy logistics of the city's commercial district. I stood near the Aeroflow Systems exhibition booth, adjusting the lapels of my tailored navy blue blazer. My hair was cut into a sleek, professional bob. I wore minimal jewelry, just a simple silver watch my parents had given me for my graduation, which I had completed with honors 6 months prior. You ready, Ava? Dr. Thorne asked, walking over with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me. The selection committee is starting their final rounds in 10 minutes. Our presentation on the closed-loop logistics model is the favorite. But we need to close the deal. I'm ready, Dr. Thorne, I said, taking a sip of the coffee. Half sweet, no ice. Exactly the way I actually liked it, not the way Ethan had assumed I did. As we walked toward the main presentation hall, a commotion near the entrance caught my attention. A man was arguing with the security guards. I have a right to be here, the man yelled, his voice desperate and raspy. I'm a qualified consultant. I just need 5 minutes to present my proposal to the committee. Please. He was wearing a suit that was visibly frayed at the cuffs and stained at the collar. His hair was greasy and unkempt, and he looked at least 10 years older than he actually was. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot and frantic. It was Ethan. After being blacklisted from the corporate sector, Ethan had spent the last 2 years drifting from one low-level sales job to another. His PhD had been formally revoked by the university after the plagiarism investigation, leaving him with nothing but a high school diploma and a mountain of debt. He had lost his apartment, his car, and his pride. Sir, you don't have a delegate badge, the security guard said firmly, placing a hand on his baton. You need to leave the premises immediately, or we will call the police. Please. Ethan cried, his voice cracking. I just need a chance. Just one chance. His eyes swept over the crowd of sleek, successful professionals walking past him with looks of pity and annoyance. And then, his eyes locked onto me. Ethan froze. He stared at me, his mouth falling open. He looked at my polished leather shoes, my tailored blazer, my confident posture, and the delegate badge pinned to my chest that read, Ava Young, Lead Environmental Logistics Consultant, Aeroflow Systems. Ava, he whispered, his voice trembling. The security guards, seeing his sudden distraction, stepped forward to escort him out. Wait, I said quietly, stepping forward. The guards paused, looking at me. Ms. Leong? Do you know this man? I looked at Ethan. For years, I had wondered what I would feel if I ever saw him again. I had thought I might feel anger, or resentment, or perhaps a bitter sense of triumph. But looking at him now, standing in the lobby of the convention center, shivering in his dirty suit, I felt absolutely nothing. No hate. No anger. Just the quiet, profound realization that he was a stranger. It's all right, I told the guards. He's leaving. I walked over to him, stopping a few feet away. Ethan looked at me, a sudden, pathetic hope igniting in his eyes. He reached out his hands, as if to grab mine, but stopped himself when he saw the cold, polite distance in my expression. Ava. Oh my God, Ava, it's really you, he stammered, tears welling in his eyes. You look incredible. I heard you went back to school. I always knew you were smart. I always told people how smart you were. Did you, Ethan? I asked quietly. Ethan's face flushed with shame. I made mistakes, Ava. Terrible mistakes. I was young, and I let the pressure get to me. Victoria, she manipulated me. She ruined my career. But I've changed, I swear. I think about you every day. I miss the way we used to talk, the way we lived in that little apartment. I don't, I said. The simple, flat rejection cut through his desperate babble like a knife. Ava, please, Ethan whispered, his shoulders slumping. I'm broke. I have nothing. My mother is sick, and I can't even pay her medical bills. The university took my degree. Nobody will hire me. If you could just recommend me to your firm? Even as an assistant. I'll do anything. I'll format your data, I'll clean the office, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave me like this. He was begging. The man who had once told me I was an embarrassment, who had told me I couldn't survive in the city without him, was now kneeling in spirit at my feet, begging for the crumbs of the life I had built. I looked down at his trembling hands, and then up at the bright, soaring glass ceiling of the convention center. When I was sick, Ethan, you told me that my sacrifice was my own choice, I said, my voice calm and devoid of malice. You told me that women who have never seen the world are easy to control. Ethan flinched, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. I've seen the world now, Ethan, I continued softly. And I've realized something. What? He whispered. You were never the prize, I said. You were just the lesson. I turned away, not waiting for his response. Ava, please. He cried out behind me, but his voice was quickly muffled by the crowd and the firm, decisive intervention of the security guards guiding him toward the exit. I walked back to Dr. Thorne, who was waiting for me at the entrance of the main presentation hall. Everything all right, Ava? He asked, looking back toward the lobby. Everything is perfect, Dr. Thorne, I said, a genuine, warm smile spreading across my face. We stepped into the hall. The lights were bright, the stage was set, and the future was entirely mine to write.